Have you ever found yourself thinking about someone long after they're gone? Maybe it's a past lover, a family member, or friend. You may have thought she was just a chapter in your life, but what if I told you that her presence still haunts you, even after she's left the scene? The truth is, it's not just the memories of her that linger, but also the unresolved emotions and unmet needs from your past. This video will explore the unseen reason behind this phenomenon: emotional neglect. We'll delve into how childhood trauma and the need for validation can lead to feelings of attachment to others, even when they're no longer present in our lives. By understanding this complex dynamic, we can begin to break free from the patterns that hold us back. As we explore this phenomenon of holding on to others even after they're gone, I want you to consider a simple yet powerful idea. Emotional neglect is not just about the absence of affection, but also about the impact it has on our sense of self-worth. Think back to a time when someone close to you was emotionally unavailable, perhaps a parent or caregiver who didn't respond to your needs in a way that felt nurturing and validating. You might remember feeling unseen, unheard, or unimportant. That's emotional neglect. And what happens when we experience this as children? We begin to equate our worth with the attention and validation of others. It's like trying to fill an empty bucket. We seek constant reinforcement from those around us because that's where we learn to find value. This can make it incredibly difficult for us to let go, even after someone has passed away or moved on. Our brain is wired to crave the familiar, the comforting sensation of being seen and heard by another human being. It's a deeply ingrained pattern that can feel like an anchor holding us back from moving forward. You see, childhood trauma has a way of rewiring our attachment styles in adulthood. It's like a blueprint that gets etched into our brains at a young age, influencing how we show up in relationships later on. For some of us, it might mean people-pleasing, constantly seeking validation and approval from others to fill the void left by neglect or abuse. You know how sometimes you find yourself scrolling through old photos or reading messages from someone who's no longer in your life? At first, it might be comforting to reminisce about happy times, but soon, the what-ifs start creeping in. What if we'd made different choices? What if I'd said something differently? It's like getting stuck in a loop of replaying a song that's still playing in our heads long after the music stopped. Imagine you're trying to take a break from your favorite coffee shop after a painful breakup. You walk by it every day, but each time you can't help but notice the same familiar chair or the way the sunlight filters through the window. It's as if your brain is still holding on to something that's no longer there. For many of us, overthinking and rumination are like a lingering fog. They make it hard to see what's real and what's just our imagination running wild. And when we're stuck in this cycle, it becomes incredibly difficult to let go of someone who's no longer present. When we're in a toxic relationship, our brains can get wired to crave the highs and lows that come with it. It's like being hooked on a roller coaster ride. You can't stop thinking about the next drop or the next thrill. But when the ride ends and the person is gone, we're left feeling empty and searching for another fix. Think of it like a puzzle. When we're in a toxic relationship, our brain pieces together a narrative that makes sense of why this person stays with us despite their hurtful behaviors. We might convince ourselves that they'll change or that we can fix them. But deep down, we know the truth. We're stuck because we've invested so much emotional energy into this dynamic. Consider Sarah, who stayed in a relationship for 5 years despite her partner's constant criticism and put-downs. Even after she left, Sarah found herself constantly checking her phone for messages from him, replaying conversations in her head, and wondering if she was to blame for their breakup. The pattern of behaviors that developed during the toxic relationship had become so ingrained that it took months of therapy for Sarah to break free from this cycle and start building a healthier sense of self. You might have noticed that people-pleasing often stems from a deep-seated fear of rejection or abandonment. It's as if we're constantly trying to prove ourselves worthy of love and acceptance. We overcommit, overpromise, and overspend our emotional energy on others, hoping it'll fill the void within us. For Sarah, this meant sacrificing her own needs and desires for the sake of her partner's happiness. She'd drop everything to help with his projects, cook his favorite meals, and even adjust her work schedule to accommodate his preferences. On the surface, it seemed like a loving gesture, but in reality, it was an attempt to buy love. When we people please, we create an unhealthy dynamic where our self-worth is tied to others' approval. It's like living on borrowed time, waiting for someone else's validation before we can breathe easy. But the truth is, no matter how hard we try, we'll never be enough. We're only human, with our own flaws and limitations. If you find yourself stuck in this cycle, know that you're not alone. It takes courage to acknowledge people-pleasing as a pattern of behavior, but it's the first step towards breaking free. We often talk about moving on as a process of letting go, but what does that really mean? For many of us, attachment is like holding on to a familiar piece of ourselves, even when the relationship itself has ended. Think of it like a safety net. We cling to it because it's all we know, even if it's no longer serving us. Consider Sarah, who stayed friends with her ex on social media for months after their breakup. At first, it was comfort knowing what he was up to, but soon she found herself obsessing over every post and comment, reliving old memories, rehashing past arguments. She'd catch herself wondering if he ever thought of her too. It's not just about social media. We might find ourselves still talking to our ex's friends or family members, trying to keep the connection alive. Or maybe you're holding on to mementos from the relationship, old photos, gifts, or even their favorite places. These small gestures may seem harmless, but they can subtly keep us stuck in a cycle of attachment. To break free, we need to acknowledge these behaviors and thought patterns for what they are. Habits that hold us back. Recognizing them is just the first step. The real work begins when we take responsibility for changing our own patterns. As we begin to break free from someone who's no longer present in our lives, we often find ourselves at a crossroads. It's not just about ending the relationship, but also about rediscovering who we are without that person. Imagine you've been living in a house with a familiar layout and decor for years. But one day the owner leaves, and suddenly you're faced with an empty space. You can choose to stay stuck in the memories of what used to be or take this opportunity to renovate your life. As we wrap up our conversation today, I want you to take a deep breath in and imagine that with each inhale, you're letting go of the weight of your past. It's time to acknowledge that holding on to what hurts is not a sign of strength, but rather a sign of resistance to change. Think about it like a house that's been damaged by a storm. Trying to repair it with broken walls and shattered windows won't work. You need to tear it down and rebuild from the ground up. You've made it through some of the darkest moments in your life, and you're still standing. That takes courage, resilience, and determination. Don't underestimate the power you hold within yourself. Freedom is not something that's given to us. It's something we take. And I believe you have the strength to take it. Remember, healing is a journey, not a destination. It's okay to stumble, to make mistakes, and to learn from them. But don't let fear of failure hold you back from taking the first step towards freedom. As we wrap up this journey together, I want you to remember that every step towards healing is a testament to your strength. It's okay if it's not always linear, and it's okay if you stumble. You're not alone in this process. Every person who's ever sought help, every person who's ever taken the first step towards freedom, has walked this path before you. And I want you to know that you are capable of doing the same. Take a deep breath, be kind to yourself, and remember that true freedom is within your reach. Thank you for joining me on this journey.